What happens when a 73-year-old man gets shunned over a simple itch? The way he turned family mockery and clinical dismissal into a public reckoning left everyone speechless. You'd think that at 73, after raising 2 kids, burying a wife, building my own damn house with these 2 hands, and volunteering at the local shelter every other Sunday, people would look at me and think, there's a man who deserves respect. Nope. Turns out, once your hair starts thinning and your joints make more noise than your car engine, you turn invisible. Or worse, you become the punchline at your own family dinner. But let's rewind a bit. Let me take you to the day it all started. The day I brought homemade oatmeal cookies to my daughter's house. It was Saturday, early May. The kind of day that smells like freshly cut grass and burnt toast, courtesy of my neighbor who thinks medium rare means charcoal. I got up, made a pot of strong black coffee, and baked a batch of cookies just like my late wife used to. Crunchy on the edges, soft in the middle, pure memory in every bite. I even wrapped them up in that crinkly cellophane stuff I bought from the dollar store, tied a ribbon on top. Hell, I even shaved for the occasion. I walked over to my daughter Jenny's house. She lives about 5 blocks away, with her husband Mark, a walking spreadsheet, and their 2 teenagers who look at me like I'm a museum exhibit. Fascinating, but please don't touch. I rang the doorbell, holding those cookies like they were a peace offering to the gods. Jenny opened the door and smiled. But not the kind of smile that warms your chest. No, this one was more like, oh no, he came unannounced again. Dad, you didn't have to bring anything, she said, already reaching for the cookies with that robotic cheerfulness you develop after 5 years of therapy and a gluten-free diet. I know, I said, but I had time. And flour. Thought you could use something real for once. She laughed. I think. We sat down for lunch. Chicken breast, boiled to death, with something green that looked like seaweed and tasted like sadness. Mark talked about his new tax consultant like the man was Gandhi. The grandkids texted under the table and threw in a courtesy, uh-huh, every 15 minutes. Then it started. I reached back to scratch my lower back, just a little itch. Nothing major. Jenny stopped mid-bite. Dad, you okay? Just itchy. Probably dry skin. Mark chimed in without looking up from his quinoa. Maybe it's that old man fungus, the one that lives in couches or something? He smirked. Jenny gave him the don't be rude glance, but it was too late. The damage was done. They laughed. My grandkids laughed. I smiled too, because what else do you do when your own family turns your body into a joke? Later that night, I stood shirtless in front of the bathroom mirror, twisting like a pretzel to get a better look. Red patches, one on the back of my neck, one on my lower back, and another on the inside of my left arm. Huh. Maybe Mark wasn't entirely wrong. Maybe it was fungus, or allergies, or, I don't know. Maybe I was turning into a lizard. Wouldn't that be something? Old man sheds skin, becomes reptile, finally finds peace. I slapped on some generic cream I found in the cabinet and went to bed. But sleep? Sleep is for people whose skin isn't crawling off their bodies. The next morning, I went to the clinic. Not because I trust doctors, not exactly, but because I needed some answers. And online searches kept telling me I had every disease known to man. The waiting room smelled like antiseptic and fear. Kids coughed into their mother's arms. A teenager in flip-flops argued with the receptionist about his urgent need for acne medication. And there I was, a 73-year-old man scratching his neck like a dog with fleas. When they finally called me in, the doctor didn't even look me in the eye. He was maybe 35, with perfect skin and that smug, clipped voice that screamed, "I skipped listening class in med school." He took one look at my back, chuckled, and said, "It's age. Happens to a lot of seniors. Just skin thinning and nerve irritation. Nothing to worry about." I opened my mouth, closed it again. Thought of saying, "Hey, genius, I was building decks while you were learning the alphabet. Maybe listen to me for 5 seconds." Instead, I nodded like a good patient and left with a tiny tube of cream and a big dose of frustration. Back home, I looked at the spots again. They hadn't improved. In fact, they were spreading. A new one was blooming on my right shoulder, red, angry, and warm to the touch. That's when it hit me. The one thing that had changed in my routine. Last week I started helping out at the church again, restoring old pews made of pine. Fresh polish, raw wood, all kinds of chemicals. I typed it all into my computer. Elderly plus itch plus pine plus dermatitis. And boom, there it was. Article after article all saying the same thing. Older adults can develop late-onset allergic reactions to certain types of wood resin. Guess where those spots show up? Neck, back, inner arms. That matched exactly. So I printed out the articles and marched back to the clinic, ready to bring receipts. New doctor this time, a woman, mid-50s, glasses on her nose like a school principal who still believed in decency. She listened. She read the articles. She nodded. Then she actually examined me. With her hands, not just her eyes. Imagine that. "You're absolutely right," she said. "It's an allergic reaction. We'll start you on a steroid cream and avoid contact with pine until it clears." For a moment, I felt something rise in my chest. Not pride, not relief. Just validation. The kind that comes when someone finally treats you like a person, not a number. But don't get comfortable. That wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. That's just the beginning. What happened next changed everything. You do not want to miss how this unfolds. You ever feel like the moment you prove someone wrong, instead of respecting you, they just get mad? Like your existence is suddenly an inconvenience? That's what happened after the doctor confirmed my allergic reaction. I didn't walk out of that clinic feeling triumphant. I walked out knowing I'd just become someone's problem. Let me explain. It started with a single phone call. My daughter Jenny, the same one who laughed at my itching at the lunch table, now calling me with a voice so sweet it could rot your teeth. "Hey, Dad," she chirped. "So, I was thinking, maybe you should take a break from the church. All that wood, those chemicals, it can't be good for you." I paused. "And let me guess, you came to that conclusion all by yourself, or was it after you heard I was right, and the doctor backed me up?" Silence. Then the guilt card. "I just care, okay? I don't want you overexerting yourself." That's rich. I'd been swinging hammers since she was in diapers, and now suddenly I couldn't handle a piece of wood without a full medical team on standby? I didn't argue. I just thanked her for her concern and hung up. But then the church called. Not the building, the pastor. Pastor Greg. The man whose fence I rebuilt for free after a storm took it down. "Hey, Harold," he started, his voice all shaky like. "So, we've had some, concerns from a few of the volunteers." "Concerns?" "Yeah, about your condition. A few people mentioned the itching, and there was some discomfort about you working in the kitchen during last week's potluck." Ah, there it was. Let me tell you something. Nothing makes you feel like a leper quite like being told you make people uncomfortable just by scratching your neck. I wasn't in the kitchen, Greg. I was sanding pews in the back lot. I know. But perception, you know? We just think maybe it's best if you take a short break. Right, a short break, which is church code for, we're cutting you out gently so we don't look like monsters. I hung up without saying much, but something inside me, something that had been sleeping a long time, started to stretch, crack its knuckles and sit up. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was clarity. They didn't see me anymore. Not really. Not as a man. Not as a volunteer. Not even as Jenny's father. I was a liability, an aging inconvenience with flaky skin and a condition. So, I did what any dangerous, itchy grandpa would do. I went to the HOA meeting. Now, for those unfamiliar with homeowner association meetings, they're basically suburban tribunals where the self-righteous gather to police lawn heights and parking violations. I hadn't been to one in years, but I figured if everyone was already whispering about my condition, I might as well lean in. I wore my cleanest flannel, tucked it in tight, brought a folder full of printouts, medical documentation, allergy details, and a note from Dr. Kim. If they wanted to treat me like a case file, I'd show up like one. I waited quietly while they debated the height of Karen Gibbons' mailbox for 20 minutes. Then I raised my hand. "Yes, Harold," said Linda, the HOA president and local tyrant, who once fined me for excessive wind chimes. "I'd like to address the rumors circulating about my contagious condition, which, by the way, is neither contagious nor any of your business." A few gasps. One man coughed nervously. "I've provided full documentation here. It's an allergic reaction, not the plague, not smallpox, not zombie rot." Someone giggled. Linda frowned. "And if anyone has concerns about me attending community events, I'd be happy to share the articles I brought. Or, better yet, we could start a discussion on how fast some folks jump to judgment based on appearance." Linda cleared her throat. "Well, Harold, thank you for being transparent. I think we all appreciate your openness." You could feel the awkward spreading through the room like spilled coffee. Afterward, a few people came up to me. Most offered half-hearted thanks or muttered, "Good for you." But there was one, a woman named Diane. Widowed, mid-60s, sharp as a tack. She leaned in and whispered, "They did the same to my husband when he got sick. Treated him like a ghost. You did the right thing." That meant more than I expected. But of course, the peace didn't last. Next day, Mark showed up at my house. Not Jenny. Mark. He parked that pretentious hybrid of his right across my lawn and walked up like he owned the block. "Hey, Harold," he started, hands in his pockets. "Just checking in." "On what?" "On your behavior lately." I stared at him. "You mean defending myself with facts?" He laughed, but not in a funny way. "Look, I get it. You want to feel heard. But it's just that Jenny's worried you're getting agitated. She thinks maybe you need someone to talk to." Ah, there it was. The mental health angle. Nothing says, "we love you," like implying you've lost your grip on reality. "Tell Jenny I talk just fine," I said. "In fact, I'm talking to you right now, aren't I?" "Sure," he said, raising an eyebrow. "But maybe it would help to have someone professional." "You mean someone with a degree to tell me I'm old but not dangerous?" He didn't answer. I didn't expect him to. When he left, I sat on the porch and watched the sky darken. The wind picked up. I noticed the itching had eased. Not from the cream, from the fight. Because the truth is, there's nothing more irritating than being treated like your opinion expired with your youth. Like your insight is irrelevant. Like your body is the only thing they see. But they didn't know what I had planned. They didn't know what I was going to do next. And neither do you. This is the turning point. Everything you've been waiting for, the confrontation, the fire, the moment where I take back control, is coming. Stay with me. You do not want to miss how I put them all in their place. You ever feel like there's a moment in life when everything just snaps? I don't mean the dramatic kind where you throw dishes or storm out of rooms. I mean the quiet, deliberate snap. Like when a branch breaks under your foot and you suddenly realize you're done tiptoeing. That moment came for me on a Tuesday afternoon, exactly 1 week after Mark implied I needed therapy because I dared to defend my own dignity. I was sitting on my porch, sipping lukewarm coffee, when the mail came. A letter. No return address. Inside was a formal notification from the local senior center. Apparently, due to recent concerns about hygiene and health safety, my volunteer application was being reviewed indefinitely. Translation. Someone, and I have a good idea who, called them and said the itchy old man might be diseased. That was it. I folded the letter, set it down neatly, and made a choice. If they wanted a problem senior, I'd give them one. Step 1. I shaved, put on my cleanest suit, navy blue, same one I wore to my wife's funeral, and walked straight into the Community Health Board meeting that Thursday. The kind of bureaucratic wasteland where no one expects an old man with backbone. I walked in, all smiles. "Name?" the woman at the front desk asked, barely looking up. "Harold Bishop. I'm not on the agenda, but I'm about to be on yours." She blinked. I walked past her and straight into the room. 10 people seated at a long table, water pitchers, nameplates, smug expressions. The room had that sterile vibe, where nothing human is allowed to happen. "Good afternoon," I said loudly enough to echo. "I'm Harold Bishop. I've lived in this town 42 years. I've built decks, fixed roofs, taught kids how to use a hammer without losing a finger. And recently, I've been treated like a walking biohazard because I had a rash." Dead silence. Someone shuffled papers like it would protect them from the truth. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to point something out. When did we decide that aging means incompetence? When did a red patch on someone's skin become a scarlet letter? You want to talk health? Let's talk about what happens when people are shamed into silence, when they're dismissed without being heard, when they're told their time is up simply because they've crossed some invisible line labeled "too old to matter." A woman at the table cleared her throat. "Mr. Bishop, we're not sure this is the right platform for—" "Oh, I know," I cut in. "You'd prefer I sit quietly and accept your vague letters, but I'm not doing that. Not anymore. Because I've got news for you. Just because I'm over 70 doesn't mean I'm done living, or thinking, or fighting." I placed copies of my medical documents, allergy diagnosis, and timeline of discrimination right on the table. I'm filing a formal complaint against the Senior Center, the HOA, and every local institution that let gossip replace truth. And I'll make it loud. I've got time. You think retired folks are harmless? We're a damn army with nothing but time. No one said a word, but I saw it. A flicker in a few eyes. Not fear, awareness. The kind that says, "We underestimated the wrong man." Step 2. The church bulletin board. That Sunday, I stapled a neatly printed open letter right onto it. A summary of what happened, signed and dated. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. Everyone in town reads that board like it's scripture. By Monday, I got 3 phone calls. One from Diane. Remember her? The widow from the HOA meeting. She invited me to coffee. One from the local news blog. They wanted to hear my side. And one, most surprising of all, from Pastor Greg. "Harold, I owe you an apology." I paused. Let him stew. "You were right," he said. We acted out of fear, not fact. The volunteers feel awful. They want you back. I let that sit in silence for a moment before replying. Greg, you know what fear does? It spreads, like a rash, only it's contagious. I'll come back when I believe the room is disinfected. He didn't laugh, but Diane did. Later, over coffee at a diner that still serves real pie and not some kale-infused nonsense. She looked at me and said, "You're braver than most men half your age." I smiled, number just older, which means I've run out of time to stay quiet. But the real showdown came later. Jenny and Mark invited me to dinner. Just us, they said. No kids, no distractions. When I arrived, the table was set. Candles, wine, like they were about to stage an intervention. "Dad," Jenny started, "we just want to understand what's been going on with you lately." I leaned back. I've been standing up for myself. That's what's been going on. "You've been confrontational," Mark said, like he was reading from a parenting manual. "No," I corrected. "I've been loud. There's a difference. I got tired of being dismissed, mocked, judged." Jenny looked down at her lap. "We didn't mean to." "But you did," I said calmly. "You laughed at me in your kitchen. You sent Mark to check on my sanity. You called the senior center." Mark raised his hands. "That was out of concern." I stared at him. "You don't get to call control concern. I know the difference." Silence again. Finally, Jenny reached out, voice trembling. "We're sorry, Dad." "Really?" "We just didn't know how to react." "That's the problem," I said. "You think aging is a disease, but the only thing wrong with me was being treated like I didn't matter." She nodded, slowly. That was the moment the anger melted. Not entirely, but enough. "You think this is the end? You think a speech at a dinner table is the victory? Think again. Because what came next, what truly changed everything, wasn't about me at all. It was about what I saw in their eyes, and what they did next. This was the climax. You felt it, didn't you? But trust me, the aftermath is where the real transformation begins. Don't leave now. The final chapter will leave you speechless. Let me tell you something no one ever admits out loud. The hardest part about growing old isn't the pain in your knees, or the medicine cabinet slowly turning into a pharmacy. It's the moment you realize people stopped listening. Worse, they pretend they are, but they're really just waiting for you to finish talking so they can get back to their real lives. But something changed after that dinner. Not just in them, in me. A week passed. Jenny began calling more often. But not the performative, "How's your blood pressure, Dad?" kind of calls. I mean real conversations, asking about my opinions, remembering stories I told her when she was a kid. She even said, "I've been thinking about what you said, about being treated like you're done. You're right. I didn't see it before." That meant something. And Mark? Well, he showed up with a toolbox one morning. Same one I gave him when he married my daughter. Said he needed help fixing the fence. He could have hired someone. Hell, he would have hired someone. A guy like Mark always prefers outsourcing emotion. But this time, he wanted me there. We didn't say much, just worked. Measured, hammered, passed screws in silence. It wasn't dramatic, but it was something. A peace treaty written in cedar. Still, I didn't let my guard down. Because here's the truth they don't put in Hallmark cards. Forgiveness doesn't mean you forget. It means you finally get to stop carrying the damn thing around. But here's where the story turns again. I got a call from the senior center director. Apparently, my open challenge at the health board meeting had stirred up more than I expected. Other seniors started coming forward. One man, Walt, a retired bus driver, said he was forced to stop volunteering after someone said his limp scared the children. Another, Betty, a retired nurse, said she was banned from leading yoga because of her age, despite being more flexible than half the 20-year-olds in leggings. They asked me to speak at the next community wellness event. Me, the itchy man from the back of the room. I walked up to that podium, papers in hand, sweat under my collar, not from nerves, but from the fire that still hadn't gone out. "Let's get one thing straight," I began. "I'm not here because I'm wise. I'm here because I was tired of watching people like us get dismissed for the crime of surviving." A few heads nodded. I kept going. We built this town. We paid taxes, raised kids, fought wars, and fixed the damn roads with our bare hands. And now we're being told we're too much trouble to include? That we're unsafe to be around because of a rash or a wrinkle? I paused. Let that land. My body is changing, sure, but that doesn't mean I stopped having value. The only real sickness we're facing is the belief that aging equals irrelevance. Silence. And then applause. Not thunderous, not dramatic, but real. And I knew right then that I hadn't just spoken for myself. I'd spoken for every person who ever got side-eyed in the checkout line, ignored at the family table, or gently pushed out of the room because their presence was too inconvenient. The next few weeks brought more surprises. Pastor Greg invited me back, not to hammer pews this time, but to lead a workshop called Building After 70, a mix of woodworking and life advice. The Senior Center posted a public apology on their website, along with a new inclusivity policy for volunteers. And Jenny? She made me dinner. Real dinner. Not boiled chicken and lettuce, but meatloaf and mashed potatoes, just like her mother used to make. She even found the old family photo albums and brought them to the table. We sat, flipping through pages. She laughed at her bad haircuts. I laughed at my bad mustache. Mark even smiled. Really smiled. And for once, nobody looked at me like I was fading. Now, I won't pretend everything's perfect. Some folks still avoid eye contact when I pass. Others still whisper. But I've learned to stop taking silence as gospel. See, the world may be loud, but that doesn't mean we go quiet. If you've lived long enough to feel dismissed, you've also lived long enough to stand your ground. And that itching? It's gone now. Funny, isn't it? Turns out, the body knows when the fight is over, and when the man's finally been seen. Don't let them tell you you're done. Don't wait for permission to be heard. And don't, under any circumstance, ever scratch quietly in the corner just to make others comfortable. Speak up. Stand tall. Because the world doesn't get to decide when your story ends. You do.